Hello, I'm Shannon Brinker, and we're back to going through the next segment of our Becoming the Whitening Specialist module. And this one is troubleshooting. And I want to first go back over some of the things that we talked about at the very beginning when we went through and we talked about stains, because this is really important for you to understand what you're looking at and can this patient become a good candidate for whitening. And when we went back and we talked about intrinsic dental stains that really emerge from within the tooth, you have to understand that, okay? So when we think about intrinsic, when we think about what is going on, most importantly, what are we looking at? We need to understand that when we have intrinsic stains like fluorosis, which is the white spot lesions, right? From overexposed fluoride. And again, we talked about when we see that. We also talked about tetracycline, which is really tough. It can get lighter and it can be done. I've done hundreds of cases, but you're going to work for it, right? And one of the things that I want you to go back to, and again, looking and troubleshooting, is with fluorosis, we can make the teeth look lighter, okay? But we have to bleach all those areas. And one of the things you got to make sure that you talk to patients about is, yes, those white spots are going to appear really super white while we're going through this, and then it'll subside a little bit. But the one thing that I also want them to understand is we're also going to get the teeth lighter. So that really doesn't stand out quite as much. So if you're doing whitening for your patient, yes, the teeth are going to get lighter and they're going to kind of suffer for a little bit with those white spot lesions, but it will start to disappear. It will never be perfect. So do not tell them that. Don't tell them that it's going to be perfect, because it's not. The other piece of this is the tetracycline, right? We know that with tetracycline that this is where we've got the, the different, tones of grays, blues, browns, and all different shades and all different types from staining from utilizing a prescription drug, tetracycline. And these are really the toughest ones to make, or toughest ones to change. So if you're going to do that, you need to make sure that you have the patient understand that this is going to be a process, and most importantly, protecting yourself with how much these syringes are going to cost and what it's going to take, because you really don't know. And so what I do is I'll tell the patient the first kit comes with 6 syringes, and then depending on how much longer we need to do, one syringe is $3, costs us $3, right? In our practice from Ultradent or whoever you're going to buy the bleach from. But technically we'll sell that bleaching syringe for $10 to the patient. And that's a really good markup. We feel good about it. And again, we can continue to do it until we both feel that that shade is good. The other stain that we feel is something outside of the tooth that is really self-inflicted. That's something I want you to always think about. Tobacco stain, which can be yellow or brown. This can be removed with peroxide. This can be removed with a good cleaning, maybe some air abrasion, and then also thinking about patients being a good candidate for the whitening process. If you look at these first two, it makes it tough. They're a candidate, but you're going to have to work. And again, not promising these results, because you really got to think about expectations. I showed you the first case this morning, the first case in the first segment, where I had a patient, Michael, who had this this disorder from the tooth development. And again, going back to that, this is where the teeth are kind of small, they're pitted, they have grooves in them, and they are really prone to rapid wear, and also breakage. Okay, so I really want you to be aware of that. And this is where, it breaks my heart, because these patients can't do anything about it. The only other thing they can do is try to whiten the teeth, and most of the time have restorative. But again, they're small, they're discolored, they're pitted, and they're weak. Okay, so we really got to think about that. And this can be affected with baby teeth. That also can happen to adult teeth. So just kind of be aware of that. Okay, and I never ever promise patients nothing, because my doctor's got to come in and treatment plan, right? I mean, that's one of the things that I will tell you. Yeah, I have the conversation, but I don't want to mislead you to make you think that I am treatment planning these patients, because I'm not. I mean, the dentist's got to come in and tell them whether they're a good candidate or not, and also prescribe the whitening, right? So anytime I'm seeing them, I'll have the conversation, I'll start it. But before I do anything, I got to get the doctor in to approve what we're going to be doing. I tell them what's going to happen and how we're going to achieve it. I also give my theory on what I think might be the best for him, because he will sit and listen. But most importantly, at the end of the day, he has to say yes, and he's the doctor. The other one is, we went through, what if the patient has had a root canal in that front tooth? We can do internal whitening, but we got to make sure that the patient understands It's unpredictable, right? And then when we saw Steve, we looked at his case where every other tooth was a crown. They got to be ready. I've had patients come in my office with a crown on number 8 or a crown on number 9, and they thought that that was going to whiten, and my team on the phone didn't tell them, which is okay. Because, sometimes they don't want to break any bad news. They want me to do it, which is okay too. But I do want patients to be ready. And the last thing you ever want to do is to whiten somebody's teeth and hate the rest of their teeth. And that's happened, right? I showed you several cases. And then the other thing is tooth aging. I don't turn down any patient that wants to whiten their teeth. I don't care what age they are, as long as they're not going to be in any pain, right? But I would tell you, this patient, Miss Nettles, came in for whitening, and we ended up doing restorations on those 4 front teeth to close that space. We ended up doing a partial on the bottom to match her new white teeth that we basically achieved for her. So you think about it, coming in on a whitening special, she did 4 front teeth and she did a partial. That is really good income. And so again, once she started getting these teeth lighter, she started nitpicking a lot of the other things, and treatment came from it. Now, not always are treatment going to come from it, but I'll tell you what, if you see enough of these people, you'll be surprised how many people will say yes. And most importantly, we always want to give them options, not one and done, only one thing, so they can make the decision of what works best. And again, being accommodating, but also taking care of them, really important. When we also look at best candidates, those are the yellow-brown, A's, B's. And I keep saying that. I want you to understand A's and B's. If you get that in your head and you know A's and B's are super easy, C's and D's are tough, we will achieve a success with in-office, I believe, totally believe it, with a take-home, but it's going to take some time, right? And I've proven that already. Who is not a good candidate, really, is this patient. This patient came in, he really wanted to do whitening so bad, but it's hard to tell it where he's got restorations. Can you find them? They're on his front 2 teeth, but man, are they beautiful. Dr. Etheridge did these. They're gorgeous. And he had done them several years ago. And this patient said, Shannon, I wish my teeth were lighter. I just feel like they're so yellow. And I was like, are you kidding me? You have veneers? I couldn't even see them. I mean, the only thing that got my attention was because they wrote it up in the chart, right? They look crazy amazing. And, I told him, I said, listen, we could whiten your teeth, and yes, you're a great candidate, but I'm going to tell you, nothing is ever going to come close to what those look like right now. And when we remove porcelain, we're going to be removing tooth structure every time. I don't care if you're the best dentist in the world, we're going to be removing tooth structure. And listen, these restorations will not last you forever. So what I want you to know is what I would do is I'd wait. They're so beautiful. And listen, Dr. Etheridge is so proud of these teeth. Let me tell you, he is like King Big Daddy, right? He loves these crowns, or these veneers, not crowns. And he'd already told me he didn't want to take them off. And I don't blame him. I see now why, because sometimes I can talk him into it, redoing it. But I said, no, this is the one time, again, you got to sleep at night knowing you said the right thing to the patient. I said, listen, these are beautiful. Do not cut these off. For someone that has full mouth reconstruction, you keep those. And when you decide to redo them because they need to be redone, Shannon is here to do the whitening for you, okay? So, because I don't want my patients to do that. I really want to conserve tooth structure, and he's got beautiful teeth. He's a great candidate, but do the right thing, okay? The other thing is in patients who are really, really hard to whiten. There are going to be patients that are going to be really tough to get a good result. And I will tell you that I've only learned this from experience. When I had this patient come in, I really thought she was an A3.5. She really is a D. Okay, so I was wrong. She really is a D shade. And that day I was like, oh, okay, well, she's an A3. And again, that's another one of my ballpark home runs. And so I whitened her in the office. I gave her some home trays. She went home. She did it for 14 days, and she comes back. And again, I really feel she was a D. She really wasn't an A. But her teeth are so shiny. Look how shiny they are. And for her to have done it for that long, look, A3.5, she's like an A2. And I was like, this is not something to really celebrate. Most people will be like, yeah, that looks good. But you don't understand. This is not, to me, a celebration. I am not happy. And I told her, I said, I got to be honest with you, I'm not happy with this. And she was. But I said, I'm not happy because I know we can do better than this. And it's just going to be challenging. I said, I thought you were an A. A's are always easy. And I'm just starting to second guess. And so this was Dr. Sinclair's patient. I had him come in and I said, Dr. Sinclair, I think I might have been wrong with the preoperative shade. I said, I wonder if she maybe was a D. And again, I'd already taken the photos and already started whitening her, so I can't go back. And when we look back on her photo, thank goodness we did have it with the shade tab, he said, you know what, Shannon, I think you're right. I think she was a D. I don't think she was an A. And I said, well, if I'd have known she was a D, and kind of looked at the patient, kind of laughed, I was like, I know if she was a D, we got to work harder, and yeah, we got to work harder. So that's one of the things that I want you to be aware of, is making sure you really pay attention to the shade and that you choose the right one, right? So we had to work harder. We had to do an in-office treatment for her. And again, looking at, A2, A1, where she is now, it's something that, again, we went from an let me go back. We went from an A3.5 to an A2 to an A1. And I got to tell you, I'm not going to bounce up and down and jump up and down for an A1, but I tried everything under the sun. I whitened her in the office. I gave her custom trays. I gave her 10% to wear at night. Then I switched it, and I switched her to that 35% to just tell her to do it an hour a day to see if maybe switching, and sometimes that will happen if you switch it to where you maybe just need that shade or that shade and a half, and you change the peroxide, it might work. And I will tell you, I was not happy. I mean, going from an A3.5 to A1 to me does not make me do some flips, so I was just still not happy. But again, she's happy, and that's all that matters. But this was a tough one. This was only one of two that I've ever had a hard problem with. So something to really, look at and pay attention, and making sure you choose the right shade. This is, again, super, super cute patient. And she, oh my gosh, her mom is so nice, really sweet people. And her and her sister both, they look like twins. And one of the complaints that her mom had along with her was that she had a lot of buildup. And her mom said, I'm not sure that she's really brushing as much as she should. And I said, well, does she have some gastrointestinal problems? Because my daughter has that, where she has really bad breath, but there's no decay, there's no cavities, just extra plaque, and just spending a little bit more time brushing. But most importantly, her breath was always not the best, right? So I told her mom, I said, well, listen, I think we could whiten her teeth, and I think having that peroxide could help kill some of these bugs on her teeth. You might see a big difference. And I had been doing quite a few of these patients where they weren't brushing as well, because it's another reason why sometimes the teenagers come into my office, because mom wants them to come so we can get rid of the biofilm off their teeth or the plaque. So I said, what do you got to lose? Now, Grant, look here, she's an A1. She's a good candidate. She's not that dark, but she doesn't smoke. She doesn't chew tobacco. She doesn't, drink coffee. And so she's a really good candidate for the go. So what I did was I gave her a 10% go. She went home. She did it for 7 days and came back. Now, yes, that's a 10-day regimen, but she was like, Miss Shannon, I really wanted to save it in case I needed a touch up. So I was like, okay. So she comes back in, and it's only been 7 days. She did it for an hour a day, and look how great she looks. She is, first of all, so cute. But what I want you to look at is the gums. Let's go back. Do you see how puffy and red? And she thought she'd floss before she'd come and see me. Isn't that funny? How they know they're coming to see you, and then they floss right before they come in. So you see the blood there, right? But look at her gum tissue. This is what's crazy about using peroxide, okay? Crazy, right? So her mom goes, hey, can we do this? And I said, we don't want to do it, but so many times throughout the year, but absolutely we can. And I said, one of the things that I feel like is really important is for you to have a regimen. So if you can do it for, we already achieved a good result, but if you can do it a few more, days, let's finish out the Go tray. And then let's do it like every 2 months. Let's wear them for a few days and try to help clean off some of the biofilm that's there. And she loves it, but most importantly, her mom is really happy. And I was really surprised at the result that she got. And it's really, really good. And this was just with a 10% hydrogen peroxide, okay? Now, this next case is probably my most drastic case when it comes to whitening, and not because of the color, but because of the biofilm and the plaque. This young girl is a foreign exchange student, and she was here, and her host brought her to my office, and she said, Shannon, she really does not take good care of her teeth, and I really want to help her because she's so beautiful and she's so sweet, but she's got all this like film on her front teeth. And so I said, well, the first thing we want to do is we want to do a cleaning. So we got her in. They did a cleaning, and I said, I really think she's a great candidate for whitening, and we could utilize this new Go, which is a pre-filled system. It would work great on her, and I've done several cases where it eats the film off the front of the teeth, and they get a lighter appearance. But the most important thing is the tissue doesn't look all puffy and red, and it just doesn't look bad. And so, so her host said, hey, I'm gonna buy it for her. I really want her to have this, and so we gave it to her. She did it for 10 days. And I said, after 10 days, I want to see you again. So I had her come back. And 10 days later, look at this. Is she not beautiful? Oh my gosh. That's why I said, you could be a model. Oh my gosh. I mean, she's gorgeous. But let's go back. Look how nasty these teeth look. Look at her smile. Look at those front teeth. Look at 7 and 8. Ugh, right? Look at the plaque on those front teeth. Look at that. It's gone. She was so happy, and she said, I've never, ever, ever thought my teeth would look like this. They are beautiful. But look at her. Look at the smile on her face and these teeth. It's gorgeous, right? I wrote this up in Dentistry Today because I just said, oh my God, this is such a drastic case. Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. So what I want you to think about when it comes to troubleshooting is it's not always about the bleaching. It's about what can we do for the gums and for the front of the teeth, and how can we help them get rid of the biofilm. This really works, or PerioProtect would not be in business. Okay, so that's what I want you to think about. And PerioProtect is nothing but a tray that is fabricated at a lab with hydrogen peroxide in it. And I know that because they sent me many, many letters asking me to cease and desist. But one of the things I want you to understand is if you are filing for those periodontal trays, as long as you don't make them and somebody makes them at a lab, or you have a second lab that maybe is hooked off of your office, and it's custom made, and all of them are custom made, but fabricated maybe on a machine, or maybe you have a printer, it's totally legal, and you can do this. And you can, again, I don't like charge my patients $800 for some custom trays just because it's peroxide, because this is the same thing. And it's actually just a higher peroxide. So let me show you, let me prove it. This was where I got my cease and desist letter from SDI. And I'm sorry, for PerioProtect, excuse me. And this patient came into my office and knew he was going to have scaling and root planing. He is a police officer. And, Dr. Sinclair said, hey, Shannon, do you think that peroxide stuff might work if we do that on Mr. Countryman? And I was like, yeah, sure. And so he had his teeth cleaned. He had scaling and root planing. We made him some trays. And then one of the things that I want you to really know is that when you look at these teeth, this was when you look at the puffiness, you look at the red, he still has a lot of plaque down those lower anterior teeth, right? So we, again, made in the trays, and here they are. All they are is bleaching trays. Notice, though, that I went up about 1 millimeter to 2 millimeters above the gum tissue, and I don't always go up this far when I'm doing home tray whitening, but I do want you to see that I do take it higher up, about 2 millimeters or so, and then what that allows the whitening to do, or the peroxide to do, is to kill the germs that are on the gums, right? And remember, I'm going to do a very low percentage, that 10%, and he is going to wear it for a couple of hours. Now, he said, Shannon, if I don't sleep in it, I'm not going to do it. And I said, well, then sleep in it and let me know if you have any problems. I don't want you to be hurting, but at least, try to get up early in the morning to take them out and brush them really, really good, take them out, and then I want you to wear them for several days. And so my regimen for this was really 21 days. And so he would wear this tray pretty much every night unless he was hurting, which was only like 1 or 2 nights, with a 10%. And then he was supposed to come back and see me. When he came back to see me 21 days later, this is where he was. And I was shocked. What I want you to look at is the plaque and the buildup at the bottom of those lower anteriors, and just the difference in his teeth. Now, he's got some white spot lesions, but those are embedded in the tooth. They're not going to come or be released. That is a defect in the enamel and the dentin. So, again, I'm so happy. And do you know what he said to me? Shannon, I flossed. And I was like, what? Get out of town. He goes, no, I flossed. And I was like, oh my God. I said, can I hug you? And he's like, yeah. And I said, I'm so proud of you right now. And I said, I really, really want you to keep your teeth for the rest of your life. And it would not be hard for you to do this. You know, we really want to make sure that you do that because you've got really nice teeth. There's people that would kill to have teeth like this, you know. And I said, yeah, you've got some areas and we're going to clean it up. But if you just follow these regimens, you're going to be amazing. And like I said, one of the things that my hygienist was really surprised on was just how well the gum tissue looked. Now, Grant, it's not perfect and I know it, but look at the difference. But here, check that out. Wow, right? And for him to tell me he flossed, that was really cool. So I want you to really think about that. Now, this other case really, really broke my heart. And I want to tell you that she is a really young adult. She's got a scholarship to go to NC State. She's going to be a vet. She had her next door neighbor who was a dentist said, hey, I can do some Lumineers on you. And it's not knocking Lumineers, but she had Lumineers. And it was his first case and he needed a case. So she had really small teeth and he said, hey, I think you'd be a really good candidate for these Lumineers and I'd love to do it for you and I'll do it for you for free. And she said, well, what do I got to lose? Because she hated the way her teeth looked. And so they did a cleaning on her, but one of the things that I noticed was I could stick my Explorer all the way up underneath number 8 and number 9. Those were just sticking out so bad. And she'd had them for about 5 years. So it's been a while. But when you look at her gums and again, just being able to get up under there, it really scared me. And it scared Dr. Sinclair. It also scared our hygienist. And so I told her, I said, listen, I know you can't afford to do these again, especially when you're going off to school and mom is footing the bill. And I told her, I said, but the one thing that we can do is make you a tray that you could wear some peroxide to help you keep whatever is up there and going underneath as clean as we possibly can. And so Dr. Sinclair said, hey, listen, Shannon, just make them for free. Because I know that I know she'll be back, you know what I mean? And he said, she's a kid and I want her to have something because she's done so well on her grades and really trying to, make something of herself. So let's do it for her for free. And I said, I love that. So we made her a tray and we gave her that 10%, carbamide peroxide, right? Because she's going to sleep in it. She's going to do it every day for those 21 days. So when it's perio or it's something that we're going to remove biofilm or plaque, I really like to lean towards the 21-day cycle. So she's going to wear these for 21 days and then come back. And that's what happened. She came back. You can see some of the gum tissue is looking better. Now, do I think she did it every day for the 21 days? No, I don't. Just like Dr. Countryman, I don't think he did it every day for the 21 days, but I think they came pretty close, so I'm not going to complain, okay? But what I told her was it is a significant difference, and she really needs to be doing this so this way we don't get any decay or anything up under those, and heaven forbid that we do, because then she would need crowns and may need some really extensive work, right? So that is something to think about. Now, she comes back, and again, I'm looking. You can see here where there's just those teeth or those restorations are up off the teeth. So just be aware of that, and having conversations. Again, one of the things I love is having these relationships with my doctors and being able to share what I see, what I feel, and then them to listen, is something, again, I think is really important. So that being said, let's talk about some of the other whitening materials on the market. I never want to talk bad about another dentist, and I never want to talk bad about another product, but I will tell you that for this product, there's nothing that I would say to you that I haven't already said to them. I think their home tray whitening is very, very good, and their in-office is very, very bad. And when I say that, this, first of all, their gingival barrier is like plastic, and it is very hard to get it to be smooth. And you can see that, right? It's kind of bumpy. It almost looks like it's chipping. It's not smooth. And the hardest thing is to get it to bond to itself as you're going through like 3 teeth and then curing it, 3 teeth and curing it, which was always my regimen with my other gingival barrier. And one of the things that I noticed was I also couldn't get that tip down in between these interproximal areas and for it to flow correctly. I gotta be honest, I just hated it. It was horrible. And again, it's nothing to say anything bad. I mean, I really tried to convince this company to just do better with their in-office because I felt like their home tray systems were good, home tray material, but this was not good. And so again, I'm a snob when it comes to gingival barrier, but I'm a real snob when it comes to the bleach. And as I put the tip on and squeezed it out and started placing it on the teeth, this happens to be my really good friend and also my gardener, Louise. And as I started to put it on Louise, it started running everywhere. And I got to tell you that it burned him, and I was really upset because it's hard to see. It was clear and it was runny. And this came from the refrigerator. So it was runny and I was so disappointed, but most importantly mad, because this is like family to me, and to burn my family, much less a patient, I was upset. So I swore I wouldn't use it again. And so then they told me that they came out with a new system. And so I tried it one more time. Now, Grant is not quite as bad gingival barrier as it was. They might have upgraded it just a little, but not a lot. But one of the things that I noticed when I went to squeeze out the bleach, it is no different. It is running. You see it dripping off of 8 and 9. And I just went to my refrigerator. I took the box out and I threw it in the trash. And I told my doctor, I said, I can't allow somebody else on our team to have a bad experience by burning someone. You know, of all people, as many as I've done, you know, I'm the person that wouldn't burn somebody. And for this to burn, you know, our patients, it's not worth it. And definitely not something that I want to use. So I want you to really encourage you to make sure that you're using a material that's you can see it. It puffs up. You've got control. You've got control of the gingival barrier. You've got control of the bleach. You know where it's going, and it's not running. If it runs, you grab that suction really quick, not like a slava ejector. You grab that high volume suction, you get that bad boy off of there and rinse it really good and take all that off. And that's what I've done. I've taken the whole thing out right away. I took it out. I took the gingival barrier off. I rinsed him really good. I took out the retractor and I said, we're going to start over with a different product. And that's really important for you to make sure you're choosing good products and making sure, again, when we troubleshoot, looking at the retractors, again, I don't like these. You know, I've been doing it for a long, long time, but look how close the lower lip is to the bleach. It's going to burn them. That's why I really like this retractor. So I want you to pay attention to those and again, looking at that. And again, patients can also whiten with braces on. You can still do that. You can utilize the Go tray and place it on these teeth. And why do I want to do that? If I've got a young adult who's in braces and mom says, oh my God, he's got the worst home care. He's not taking care of these braces and we're going to get these areas. And most importantly, we know that plaque is going to sit around those braces, around the brace itself and around the brackets. So why not? And what that's going to do, what did I tell you? The plaque is going to subside because the peroxide is going to kill it, right? So even though we know that there's brackets, it is a well-known fact that we can whiten during the orthodontic treatment. And guess what? It's been proven. Okay, so that's what I want you to look at. But most importantly, look at the gum tissue. Look at those gums. Yes, it's still a little bit puffy because they got a space, and those braces are, you know, tough to get in there and really floss well. But what I want you to look at is the plaque and the biofilm is gone. And this was after 10 applications over 2 weeks, an hour. You know, again, doing it every day for 10 days or 14 days, excuse me, over a 2-week period is important. Now, let's talk about those patients that come in that have the whitest stinking teeth in the world, right? I hate these patients like this, you know, and this is Keely. And Keely came in with really white teeth already. And I was like, Keely, you want me to whiten your teeth? And she goes, yeah. And I said, but Keely, your teeth are a bleach 2. A bleach 2. I said, you're only going to get 1 shade. And she said, okay, when you want to do it? I was like, are you serious right now? I said, I'm not going to do it. I said, because I don't want to take your money and your teeth are whiter than mine and mine are fake. And she said, but I want to do it. So I was like, oh, okay. But I want you to know you're only going to get a shade because you're a bleach 2. The only shade up is a bleach 1. And she's like, all right, well, what do you want me to do? What do you want to do on me? You want to do the in-office or take home? And I was just like, are you kidding me right now? I'll do whatever you want to do. And guess what? She said, well, I want the best, so I'm going to do the in-office and the take home both. And I was like, okay. And I said to her, I said, hey, well, can I ask you a question? Is that, you got a little chip on this front tooth right here. And she said, where? And I said, on that front tooth right here. Look at that little tiny chip. Does that bother you? She said, no, that don't bother me. So I was like, oh my gosh, right? These patients, you never know. It was so funny, right? They cracked me up. But anyway, but she's cute and I wanted to do it. And I thought she got a great result. A great result, right? 1 stinking shade. If that don't make you laugh, what does, right? 1 stinking shade. And I was like, woo-woo, I did my part. I was like, I'm so proud of you, girl. You did it like you're supposed to. And she goes, Shannon, really? And I said, no, it looks really good, but we got to fix that daggone chip. It's about to drive me crazy. And I don't even think we got a composite to match that color, which is funny. But again, That's what she wanted. That's what she came for. And that's what we're going to do. So now we're going to stop here and let's move on to sensitivity and marketing.